Back now to our top story. New signs that negotiations may be breaking down in Washington's effort to head off a series of automatic tax hikes and deep spending cuts expected to hit Americans hard in the new year. Just the last couple of hours, both sides came out of meetings with the Treasury Secretary. He met with Democrats and Republicans and said it is up to the other side to come up with a plan everyone can live with.
So right now, all eyes are on the White House. The country doesn't need a victory lap. It needs leadership. It's time for the president, congressional Democrats, to tell the American people what spending cuts they're really willing to make.
If Republicans insist on spending cuts being part of a down payment, as discussed at the November 16th meeting, the onus is on them to come forward with some ideas. The president's budget contains over $300 billion in health savings. If the Republicans don't like those ideas, they should make a counteroffer. It's silly to think the president is going to negotiate with himself.
Oh, joy. You can see the progress being made. Joining me now to discuss is Simon Rosenberg, who is president and founder of NDN. That's a think tank and advocacy organization, also a former campaign advisor to President Clinton. And Mark Thiessen, who's a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. So that, they are at a stalemate, I guess we could say. The Republicans wanted spending cuts, and the Democrats wanted tax hikes. And the Democrats have proposed tax hikes on the rich. And the Republicans have said, well, we don't want that, but we will put revenue on the table if you agree to some spending cuts. And now both sides is saying, you show us your proposed spending cuts first. Do I have it about right, Mark?
Yeah, about right, essentially. Look, the president, I think it's very clear to me, I think at least, that the Democrats want to go off the fiscal cliff. You can see it in the fact that President Obama is out there campaigning instead of sitting down with John Boehner, running around pushing for a bill to increase extend just the middle-class tax cuts, which he knows Republicans will never do. You can see it in the fact that 33 Senate Democrats signed this letter, which says, quote, we will oppose including Social Security cuts for future or current beneficiaries in any deficit reduction package, not just at the year end, at any time. You've got Senator Durbin, and that's signed by Harry Reid, number 2 Senate Democrat, Senator Durbin, giving a speech saying no Medicare or no touching Medicare or Medicaid in any year-end package. So basically the Democratic position is no changes to Social Security, no changes to Medicare, no changes to Medicaid, yet the mainstream media, all you hear is 3 words, Grover, Grover, Grover. All you hear is about Republican intransigence on taxes. Where are the stories about Democratic intransigence on entitlements? I mean, it seems to me that what they want to do is go off the fiscal cliff, pocket the increase on the wealthy, on the tax increase on the wealthy, and blame Republicans for the middle-class tax increases. And if that's what they want to do, then Republicans should say, let's go with them.
Simon, what about the spending cuts?
Well, first of all, I was at a meeting in the White House with the president just 2 days ago, a private meeting, and he made it very clear that he doesn't want to go over the fiscal cliff, and he thinks it would be bad for the country, and his preference is to do a deal with the Republicans. And so I think what Mark said at the beginning is not true. It may look that way, and I think we're in the early stages of what is going to be, any kind of negotiation that goes on in this situation. You've got both sides fighting in the beginning, and hopefully at the end we're going to come together for a deal. The Democrats have accepted spending cuts already, right? In 2011, we accepted $1 trillion in domestic spending cuts. In our passage of the health care bill in 2010, we cut $716 billion out of Medicare, which the Republicans have attacked us on for the last few years.
That was used to fund Obamacare.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Megan.
Exactly.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We cut an entitlement program, right? And so the point is, which the Republicans haven't done. And so we've already shown that we are willing to do the hard things required to reduce the deficit. We want to raise taxes, cut defense, reform Medicare, and cut domestic spending. We're willing to do all 4 of those things.
Mark, let me ask you, how does taking money out of Medicare and giving it to Obamacare cut spending?
That's not what I said, Megan. That's not what I said.
It doesn't cut spending. It doesn't cut spending. They cut money out of Medicare and put it to fund Obamacare. But President Obama has not put forward a plan to deal with the entitlement crisis. He put forward no plan on Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, which he himself admits is what is driving the debt and what is driving the real fiscal crisis. So they have put forward no plans whatsoever. And when Paul Ryan and others have put forward our plans, they've pilloried them for it. So, I'm glad that President Obama is meeting with Simon. I'd love for him to meet with John Boehner. I'd love for him to say seriously, show some
Simon's got a lot of good
seriousness
ideas.
about dealing with this promise. I mean, I know Simon's got a lot of sway in Washington, but I think John Boehner's the guy he needs to be
But
looking
I want to ask you
across
about
the
that,
table
Simon,
with.
because we just did reporting. Were you in that meeting with the unions and the progressive groups that the president had the other day?
I was in a different meeting. They can't meet with everybody all the same time.
Were you in the meeting that the progressive groups emerged from feeling, quote, very happy, where they felt that the White House was not going to offer any spending cuts? They felt that those programs were all going to be protected.
No, I don't think that's what was said after that meeting. I think what the Democrats want is balance. I think they're willing to give. I mean, in the president's budget now is $300 billion of additional cuts in Medicare. And this is why what Mark's saying is just not true. The Democrats have shown a willingness to give on all four of the places we think we need to give. It's been the Republicans who've been intransigent on tax increases and on defense cuts. I think if we can come to a deal like we did in 2011 on cutting spending, which the Democrats agreed to $1 trillion of, we've cut Medicare, we propose more Medicare cuts, we want to cut defense, we want to raise taxes, we can get a deal. So I'm optimistic. I think this can get done in the next few weeks.
I want to
Simon,
I want to get your reaction, Mark. I want to get your reaction. But listen, just as we're discussing this, now the Democrats are trying to make the next debt ceiling increase part of this already difficult negotiation. And the reason we're about to go off the cliff is because the two parties argued over the last increase in the debt ceiling to the point where they had to reach a deal that put us at risk of going over the cliff right now. So now we're about to go off over the cliff, and we have to raise our debt limit again. And the Democrats are saying either we agree to raise that debt ceiling limit right now in the context of these negotiations, or else. And this is just crossing the wires right now, that the White House says the debt ceiling increase should be done, and it should be done soon and without drama, and it would be deeply irresponsible if congressional Republicans require a political price for doing it. I want to get your reaction to that, Mark.
Well, I think Speaker Boehner made a very, very clear rule last time around, which is $1 of spending cuts for every dollar of debt limit increase, and Republicans need to stick to that because that's the only responsible way to deal with the debt. But listen, the Democrats' position is that they want to raise taxes in this deal, and they want to have a tax deal, right? If you take President Obama's tax increases, $82 billion a year. That doesn't even run barely runs the post office for a year, much less the federal government. So there's not enough money there. You have to deal with entitlements if you ever want to get this under control. Simon keeps saying there that the Democrats are not intransigent. This is a letter signed by 33 Senate Democrats saying no changes to Social Security at all, ever, under any deal.
Even
so
future.
If you can't make changes,
Social Security.
Future, not and year-end future. The Democrats are absolutely intransigent on entitlements.
Okay.
This is what they're secretly saying to their supporters, and that's why we're going to go off the cliff.
Well, Simon raises some points about President Obama's budget and the proposed spending cuts, but that we have not had a budget out of the, Democrat-controlled Senate in more than 3 years now. I mean, he wasn't able to get a vote on his budget.
I bet the Democrats vote that down, too, like the last one.
Well, in any event, we'll see what happens. Now here, we're almost in December. Guys, thank you, as always, for a good debate.
Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Coming up.